All right, friends, the plenary is now in session. Let us come to order, please. I'm Charlene Kammer, the Bishop in Virginia, and will be presiding this afternoon over our plenary. Let me share with you what our overall plan is so that you might know the framework of our schedule. We will begin with calendaring items at the beginning of the session. We will have a scheduled break around 3:35, and then following that break, when we come back, we will have the recognition of retiring bishops and the presentation of new leadership in the Council of Bishops. Then we will move to more calendaring items. And we do have an order of the day at 4:30 this afternoon, where we will turn to celebration of Pan-Methodist Full Communion. So I thought you might want to know what is before us this afternoon. I would like to help center us as a body by sharing again for our hearing the word from Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 through 16a. As a reminder to us of Paul's word to the early church disciples in terms of what it means to be beloved and precious with one another. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other. Just as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you are called in the one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God through him. This is the word of the Lord. All right, we'll turn now to Bishop Strife and the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters.
Thank you, Bishop Kammerer. There are two items left from the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters. You find them in your DCA on page 1967. It is calendar item 13. Petition number 2981. And it was in the ADCA on page 1203. New Episcopal Area in the Congo Central Conference.
All right.
Let me give a short introduction to that petition. You find in the ADCA on pages 1197 to 99 the report of the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters, together with an appendix that gives you the report about the criteria which we established for the creation of new or changes in episcopal areas in central conferences. That came out of our work during the last quadrennium. In the report of the Standing Committee, you also find reference to a website of GCFA where you can find maps and graphs of each episcopal area in the central conferences. It may be very interesting for you to have a look at that. It gives you an idea of the geographical size and countries belonging to an episcopal area, but also about the annual conferences, their membership, and some data around these episcopal areas. Have a look at it. We tried to collect also some data which before we have never collected. And therefore, these data on the sheet will certainly be perfected in the future, but they help us to use the criteria which we think are most important to see what are the priorities for the workload of a bishop. And the workload of a bishop, the first priority for the workload is around the number of active clergy and charges or circuits in the episcopal area. A second priority is the geographical size of the episcopal area, and a third priority, the number of annual conferences and membership. Because understand, if you have one single church with 10,000 members, it does not give the same workload to a bishop as if you have 200 churches with much smaller membership and spread out over 2,000 miles from east to west. So the important question for us was, what makes up the workload of a bishop? And then when we applied these data and looked at these data, the standing committee unanimously, everyone put the Central Conference, the Central Congo Episcopal Area in the Congo Central Conference as the one episcopal area that most needs an additional bishop. Now, if you read the petition, you see that we asked the Central Conference to have one additional bishop, and then the Central Conference has to set the boundaries for the episcopal areas. So the petition is before you.
All right, it's before you. Does anyone wish to speak or ask a question? If not, it looks like you're ready to vote. All right, if you would support this petition, get out your voting machines. Please get your voting machines. If you would support the petition, you're going to press 1. It's a yellow card, I think. Yeah. Okay, excuse me, I do see a yellow card over here. Microphone 6, I believe. Over here, microphone 6. Yes, I'm recognizing you.
Avoid 6.
Thank you, Bishop. Jean-Marie Nkonge, clergy from South Congo Episcopal area. We are really, as members of South Congo, very, very thankful to the Standing Committee for accepting to set up another new episcopal areas. But I would also like to remind the body that This was also discussed in Pittsburgh in 2004. It came back again in Fort Worth in 2008, where people were raising those issues according to the great need we have. We are talking about 2.3 million people in that Central Conference. This represents about over 18% of the entire United Methodist population. And then when we speak to around the South Congo Episcopal area, we are also talking about one of the largest Episcopal area in the world, with over 1 million people, with, with 42 districts. And also it is not only the Congo, but it is also covering Zambia as a country. This is why that the other petition was asking, if possible, to give another Episcopal area. And then we know that this General Conference will also bring up the issue of financial implication. But we can also remember from Fort Worth, it was said that 4 Episcopal areas in the States will be closed, and then the money could be used from 2012, and then this is 2012. So for me, giving another addition to that Episcopal area will not be a favor, but it will be really a good support to great efforts that has been made to make more disciples. And then we are really over 1 million. And then we are talking about a country which is the second largest in Africa.
All right, sir, you need to sum up. You're running out of time.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if the body can consider giving another Episcopal area as it was raised in that petition. Thank you.
All right, I believe you've made a speech against this petition. He wants another. He wants another. He wants another.
There is another petition coming afterwards. Now we are on a this one is supporting the other one is referred to something.
All right, I've been helped by persons. You might want to know there's another petition coming that will address what you have said in your supportive statement. Thank you very much. All right, anyone else who desires to speak? Yes, in the very back. Yes, you. If you'll come to microphone 8, I believe.
Beth Ann Cook, Indiana Conference. I rise to speak in favor of this petition, and I would also be in favor of the later one that would add an additional bishop. I'm the one who made the motion 4 years ago about using the cost savings from downsizing the number of bishops in the United States for the Congo. At that time, I did that in part because transportation is very difficult there. My bishop has very good roads to come and visit our churches. That's not the case in the Congo. And also, the percentage of growth in these annual conferences has been so rapid that by 4 years from now, they will be even larger and in more need of an additional bishop. So I urge this body to vote in favor of adding bishops to the Congo.
All right, there have now been 2 speeches for. Does anyone wish to speak against? All right, I believe we're ready to vote. And see an orange card in the very back. Yes. Go to the same microphone, microphone 3.
Bishop Margaret Novak from the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters. There were people from Central Congo and other African Central Conferences who helped in the developing of the formula that we worked very hard at coming up with. We are covenanting to continue to use that formula and the matrix we developed when we look at establishing any new Episcopal area, no matter where it is. We used that formula for the very first time and decided overwhelmingly to support the placement of one new bishop in the Congo. Please allow us to bring some sort of sanity to the process by which we establish new Episcopal areas and support the recommendation of the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters by voting down this petition.
That's another one. That's another one. She's speaking another one.
Bishop Strife believes you are speaking to another petition. I'm just informing the body of that comment. Does anyone else wish to speak against before I recognize you, sir? Anyone else wish to speak against? All right, I see the white card over here. Microphone 5.
Bishop, my name is Bill Steimling, Laity, Wisconsin. I would like to remind the Assembly that it has been pointed out that each minute that we are in session, it's costing us $1,500. And if we have frivolous discourse where it's a known propensity for defeat or victory on an issue, we are wasting a good deal of revenue on some issues that need not be debated ad nauseum.
I believe you've just made a speech, and it was out of order, but you're finished, so thank you. It would be helpful to the chair if you have a white card to state the purpose, whether you wish to have an inquiry, ask a question, or so forth, so that I'm with you and can help the body at that point. Thank you. All right, we've had 2 speeches for, 1 against. Are you ready to vote? If you would vote for the petition, you will press 1. If you vote against the petition, press 2. You may vote now.
It's okay. He's okay.
5 seconds. The vote is closed. We'll wait for the results. The petition is supported. No applause, please. We don't applaud. Bishop Strife, we turn to you for the next calendar item.
With the next calendar item, we remain at a similar question according how many bishops the Central Conference in the Congo shall have in the future. And that created some confusion in the body, I think, before. The next petition you find in the DCA, page 2107, calendar item 10. It is petition number 2901, which was printed in the ADCA on page 1203. Additional bishops in the Central Congo Central Conference. The standing, should I repeat it perhaps? So page 2107 in the DCA, calendar item 10.
It also appears on the screen.
This petition asks for 5 bishops in the Central Conference of the Congo. We have now just added a 4th bishop. That was the initial petition from the Standing Committee. So on that we have acted. This petition asks for a 5th bishop for the Central Conference of the Congo. The Standing Committee, with a vote of 32 for and 0 against, moved to refer this petition back to the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters to use the criteria which we have newly established in order to bring proposals to the next General Conference in 2016. We have just fixed now the process around the creation of new episcopal areas, and in these criteria we also said that the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters will do up to 2 evaluations in regions of the world around the creation of new episcopal areas. So our process would be that the next Central Conferences this summer and fall can bring some recommendation where within their Central Conference they see the largest need. The Standing Committee will then look, how does that fit with the different criteria and the different needs in the different regions of the world? Point out 2 major areas where we want to make deeper evaluation, and then come in full knowledge of the whole picture to see where there will be the most need for new episcopal areas. And therefore, the Standing Committee really recommends that we stick with these new criteria and use them in the process before us, and therefore to refer this petition to the Standing Committee.
All right, the motion from the committee is to refer. Would anyone like to speak? Back here, in the very back of this section, the orange card. Microphone 3 and also translation, please.
Tout. Micro 2.
Translation, please. Would you state your name and conference again? Maybe that will help the interpreters.
Chrysostome Tujika, pasteur de la conférence annuelle du Sud Congo.
I'm a pastor from the South Congo, from the Conference of South Congo.
Merci, évêque, pour l'occasion que vous nous donnez encore.
Thank you, Bishop, for this opportunity that you're giving me once again.
Nous apprécions beaucoup le travail qui a été abattu et proposé par la Commission.
We appreciate tremendously the work that has been done by the Commission.
Selon ce que j'ai entendu, le comité nous propose qu'il y ait un temps d'étude pour voir selon les critères qui sont fixés.
Based on what I've heard, the proposal is that we take additional time to study based on the criteria.
Cette démarche est bonne,
This approach is a good one.
mais il y a une réalité très importante pour la région épiscopale dont il s'agit ici.
But there is a very important reality that needs to be taken into consideration for the Episcopal area that we are considering.
Si je peux rappeler, la région épiscopale du Sud Congo a environ 1 055 000 membres.
If I can remind you, the Episcopal area of South Congo has about 1.5 million members.
Et la croissance, on voit la croissance chaque jour où les travaux sont en train d'être faits par les pasteurs ainsi que les comités d'évangélisation.
And we see a growth, a tremendous growth, and we see an increase in the work that the pastors need to do and also the representative of the commission.
En accordant un nouvel évêque à la conférence annuelle du Sud Congo, ça faciliterait le travail à l'évêque qui a beaucoup de choses et qui ça devient un peu compliqué puisque c'est large.
Well, and by allowing for a new bishop, we would really alleviate the task of the current bishop because their workload is already significant.
Voilà pourquoi je voulais demander à l'Assemblée ici présente de voter pour, puisqu'il y a un besoin pressant pour la conférence annuelle du Sud Congo.
And that's why I ask to vote for this petition, because there is an urgent need in the South Congo Conference.
Aussi pour vous rappeler que la province dont il s'agit ou la région épiscopale, elle est tellement vaste, franchement, un évêque, ça serait une bonne chose. Merci.
And I would also underscore that the area, the Episcopal area that we are discussing is so vast that an additional bishop would be necessary.
All right, that would be a speech against the motion to refer. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I'm trying to get around the room and not call on people in the same section. Is there anyone else? Yes, the white card. No, the one. No, sir. Let me remind the body that part of our rules are you do not hold up your card to assist another person in being recognized. These are rules that we've agreed to live by, but I will call on you anyway. Microphone number 1.
Thank you, Bishop. Joe Kilpatrick, North Georgia Conference, laity. I just rise on a point of information. The precise numbers for the Southern Congo Episcopal area, Bishop Katembo, 1,056,700 members. The adjacent Episcopal area, North Katanga, Bishop Ntambo, 973,177 members. So the whole geographic area in the south of the Congo, including Zambia, is over 2 million people. Thank you.
All right, I'll briefly turn to the chair. Bishop Strife, did the Central Conference Committee have the same information to work with?
There is always a big struggle around statistical data from the central conferences. if you look at the data which were the last one which we had when we had our meeting before this general conference, the membership, the professing membership for all of the Central Conference in the Congo was around 1.1 million members for the whole Central Conference, if you take the professing members. And the largest area in membership was the North Katanga area, not the Central Conference, not the South Congo, but the North Katanga area. And you see here one of the difficulties of our process. We worked over 2 years together with the bishops of the area and the central conferences to receive the best data, and sometimes that's a hard thing. So we will continue that struggle over the next 4 years, but as the chair of the Standing Committee, I really urge the annual conference statisticians and the Central Conference statisticians to give us reliable data, not only on membership, but also on the number of active clergy in annual conferences and of charges or circuits in the episcopal area, because that makes up the workload of a bishop. And we really need more reliable data to compare the different places in the world.
All right, I thought that would be helpful information for the body. In the very back, yes, looks like a speech against. In the very back, moving to microphone 4.
My name is Christine Flick. I'm from Germany, South, laity. Because of English is not my first language, I ask for an interpreter.
Translation, please. Microphone 4.
Wir haben in den vergangenen Jahren, ich muss dazu sagen, ich bin Mitglied im Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters. Und wir haben in den vergangenen 2 Jahren hart über diesen Kriterien gearbeitet. Eine Folge davon war die zusätzliche Episcopal Area, die wir eben beschlossen haben.
The consequence was the additional episcopal area which we have just been discussed.
Wir haben in dieser Arbeit aber auch sehr deutlich gemerkt, dass das Zahlenmaterial sehr unterschiedlich ist und dass es ganz unterschiedliche Faktoren in den unterschiedlichen afrikanischen Zentralkonferenzen gibt.
We realized that the statistical data is very different, and we also realized that there are different factors, statistical factors, and they show us that all these data and the factors are very different for the African Central Conferences.
Es ist unzweifelhaft, dass es in vielen afrikanischen Zentralkonferenzen dass es Not nach zusätzlichen Episcopal Areas gibt.
There is no doubt that there is really a necessity for additional episcopal areas in the African Central Conferences.
Die Frage, wo es zusätzliche Bischöfe geben soll, ist aber nicht nur eine Frage der Mitglieder, sondern da sind andere Fragen von Support, Staff of Bishop Offices, Clergy, Leadership. Da sind ganz viele Fragen, auch Transportation und so weiter betroffen.
It's not just a question, you know, how many members the various episcopal areas show. There are different factors that play a very important part, and I will list them. One of the factors is support, another one is staff, another one is clergy, and let's not forget leadership and the question of transportation, which we have mentioned here before.
Und deshalb bitte ich die Generalkonferenz, uns die Arbeit machen zu lassen, zu der sie uns beauftragt hat, und diese Petition an die Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters zu verweisen. Danke.
Therefore, I ask the General Conference to allow us to do the work they have commissioned to us. Therefore, I ask you to refer this petition back to the Standing Conference.
All right, that is a speech for referral. Does anyone else wish to speak before we vote? Over here, please, microphone 3? 2, microphone 2.
Byrd Bonner, lay delegate from San Antonio in Southwest Texas Conference in the United States. Sisters and brothers, the General Conference, under the Book of Discipline and our Rules of Order, has one committee that it denominates a standing committee. The primary responsibility of that standing committee is to study and recommend to this body what to do about the formation of episcopal areas and requested organizations and annual conferences in the central conferences. I urge you to let this committee do its work. 4 years ago in Fort Worth, we had a number of these kinds of petitions that were filed and brought to us, and the plenary handily and quickly referred them all to the standing committee to study for the next 4 years. Not only did they study them, but they came up with a set of criteria that we have heard so much about. We need to let it do its work. We need to honor our own process of having and authorizing a standing committee. I urge you to vote in favor of the standing committee's recommendation for referral. Thank you.
That would be a speech for referral. Yes, over here, the white card, microphone 10.
Clarence Brown, clergy of Virginia. Bishop, I would like to call the question, please.
I'm sorry, but that would be out of order because we've not had the opportunity to have 2 speeches for and against. We have 2 speeches for referral, we have 1 speech against. So I must provide that opportunity. Would anyone like to speak against? In the very back, yes. Microphone 8 or 7. Microphone 8.
Good afternoon, Bishop. My name is Rodolfo C. Beltran, Middle Philippines Annual Conference. I stood up against the referral on the following reasons. 1, the recommendation of the committee was made upon a scientific study fulfilling all the requirements. Number 2, there is an acute need of bishops in the area, otherwise we will lose or we will not have the immediate and progressive increasing of membership in that area. Thank you.
All right, we now have 2 speeches for and 2 speeches against. Are you ready to vote?
May I?
Bishop Strife may have a final word.
I just want to remind the body that 8 years ago, we had 8 or 9 petitions for the creation of new episcopal areas. None of these petitions mentioned the Central Congo. When we looked at the data and the need, where the biggest need is, after study we came up, it will be the Central Congo episcopal era. That's the kind of process we need. There are extreme needs in many places, and certainly also in the South Congo. But let us do the process to have the overview of all the episcopal eras and to compare it, and then come back with a recommendation at the next General Conference. So I ask you to refer this petition.
All right, the motion is to refer. That is what the body will be voting on. If you will vote to refer, push 1. If you vote not to refer, push 2. You may vote now. Five seconds. The ballot is now closed. You have supported the motion to refer. And now we also turn to Bishop Strife for the next calendar item.
You find it on page 2137 of the DCA, 2137, calendar item 21. On this page, it is the second petition, and both petitions unfortunately have the same petition number. But it's just those 4 lines on the bottom of the page, and it should have the petition number 21,141 instead of 140. With the title Funding Sessions of Central Conferences on page 2137. The petition is a request for funding which is it's a petition that GCFA and GBGM together work on funding of the 2012 regular quadrennial sessions of Central Conferences where this is needed. In past quadrenniums, historically, the General Board of Global Ministries has assisted Central Conferences with their financial expenses for sessions of conferences, particularly in Africa. This has become increasingly difficult in times of budget cuts. And therefore, this petition asks for some help to hold the 2012 Central Conferences, but also to work with these Central Conferences to develop plans leading to self-sufficiency for future quadrennial sessions of the Central Conferences. The petition is before us.
And committee recommends, correct?
Recommends adoption, yes.
Yes, recommends adoption. It is before you. Would anyone like to speak to the petition? All right, I believe you're ready to vote. If you would support the recommendation of the committee to recommend calendar item 460, you will push 1. If you do not support the recommendation, you would push 2. You may vote now. 5 seconds. The ballot is now closed. All right, you have supported the committee's recommendation of adoption. Bishop Strife,
Thank you.
I
This
believe,
concludes our work.
I believe this, let's give this committee a hand for all of their hard work on our behalf. Thank you so much. All right, we turn now to the Legislative Committee on Ministry and Higher Ed. The chair is David Bard. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Bishop. Bishop Kammerer and members of General Conference, I'm David Bard, clergy delegate from Minnesota in the United States. It was my privilege and pleasure to chair the Legislative Committee on Ministry and Higher Education. I have with me on the stage Anthony Dio, who was our vice chairperson, Lisa Garvin, who served as our secretary, and Amy Gearhart, who was one of our subcommittee chairpersons who will be presenting one of the items here this afternoon. Two of our other subcommittee chairpersons, Laura Merrill and Nathaniel Bishop, will be working to present other calendar items from our committee in the future. I know that there are times when the processes of General Conference can seem inscrutable, enigmatic, labyrinthian, mysterious, and then there are those other times. We generally refer to those as recess. So you may wonder, in the midst of all of the things we are talking about, why the two petitions I will be presenting are being presented at this time, and there is to this a simple answer. They have financial implications. So if you would turn, please, in your DCA to page 2197, referring to petition number 20731, which is found on the in the ADCA on page 1463. It is a petition for recognition of the 100th anniversary of Wesley Foundations. The financial implication is that the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry in this petition is charged with convening a campus ministry summit. This petition received unanimous support, 75-0 in our legislative committee, and we move its adoption.
All right, item number 500 is before you. Does anyone wish to speak? All right, let's vote. If you would support the recommendation of the committee to adopt, you will press 1. If you do not support it, press 2. You may vote now. Five seconds. The ballot is closed. You have supported the committee's recommendation to adopt. David?
Thank you, Bishop. The next item I have is calendar item 501, found on the DCA page 2197. It refers to petition number 20906 in the ADCA on page 1464. It authorizes the General Conference, it allows the General Conference to authorize the National Plan for Hispanic Latino Ministry in consultation with GBHEM and MARCHA to develop a plan and raise funds for the creation of a United Methodist Hispanic Latino Scholarship Fund. Again, this petition was unanimously supported by our committee a vote of 71-0. We move its adoption.
The petition is before you with a committee recommendation of adoption. Does anyone wish to speak? All right, if you would vote to recommend, you will push 1. If you do not vote to recommend, push 2. You may vote now. Five seconds. The ballot is closed. You have supported the committee's recommendation.
For our next petition, I'd like Amy Gearhart, as I mentioned, a chairperson of one of our subcommittees, to come and introduce that item to you. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, David. Bishop Kammerer and delegates, I present before you item number 217, found in the DCA 2109, petition number 20311, found on the ADCA page 1452, petition 20311. This petition is informed by our prior action related to the elimination of the security of appointment. Our subcommittee approved, and later our legislative committee approved, 65 for and 18 against. Acknowledging the angst that has been created already this morning for many related to the elimination of the security of appointment, I call your attention back to that original petition 20303 to find the amendments that were provided that related to the importance of creating a culture of accountability, even as we move towards the elimination of security of appointment. That culture of accountability will rest not only in the laity and the clergy, but also in the episcopacy, as you'll find in the amendments to that petition. It's in that same spirit that this petition is brought before you, calling on the Jurisdictional Committee on Episcopacy to meet annually and no longer every other year, for the purpose, as we have prior action, for the purpose of holding the bishop and the cabinet and the Board of Ordained Ministry and the clergy session accountable for healthy decision-making in the work of securing appointments and creating deployments for ministry in the local church.
All right, the petition is before you. Yes, over here. Microphone 1.
Joe Kilpatrick, North Georgia Conference. We want to try an amendment, and the reason that 18 people voted no here was so that we would get a chance to suggest this amendment to the body.
All right, let's hear the amendment, and then you may speak to it. Thank you.
Wish to simply add a sentence at the end of paragraph 524.3a to say this: the evaluations of each bishop shall also include a review of an annual self-evaluation, a review of the bishop's written goals for the future, with a report on the status of work on goals presented from the prior year, a review of the bishop's continuing education and spiritual growth program, a review of the metrics of membership, attendance, and apportionments of the present and past annual conferences during the bishop's appointment, and a review of each bishop's role in building vital congregations by a discussion with the bishop of the metrics of key churches in the bishop's episcopal area. Period. Thank you.
All right. Do you wish to speak to it, or do you believe the content of the amendment speaks to it?
I'll speak just briefly.
All right.
We should be clear that this is an amendment that affects the U.S. jurisdictions and not the central conferences. This simply adds some structure to the evaluation. The language in the disciplinary paragraph now basically refers to evaluating the bishop's, the apportionments paid from the bishop's area, and then generalities about the bishop's duties. But the language here is similar to the evaluations of pastors, and it does add a focus on vital congregations. It also adds a focus of the metrics that are now being required and encouraged throughout the churches, districts, and annual conferences. This is a standard evaluation process for chief executives that's appropriately used throughout the human resources community. So I would encourage us to use this so that there is some flesh on the bones of the duties of the judicial Episcopal Committee as it applies to the evaluation and review of our bishop's work, and extends the thoughts of how we evaluate our pastors and other leaders in the church. Thank you.
All right, do we have a committee response to the amendment, and then I'll allow people to speak to the amendment.
Bishop Mr. Kilpatrick, with all due respect, did offer this amendment to the Legislative Committee, and it did not pass. It's in that light that I would believe the committee would not concur with this amendment.
All right, the amendment now is before you. The amendment only. I see a white card. What is your question or point of order? Number 6, please.
Mary Spradlin, Clergy, Central Texas Conference. The language used in this amendment is very familiar to us who are familiar with the metrics of our vital congregations. Are these words, these metric words, used for clergy in the Book of Discipline in a similar sense?
Who are you asking, the committee, to respond to that? Are you asking a question?
Yes.
To the maker of the amendment, or?
I understood the maker of the amendment was trying to come with a parallel for the bishops that the clergy are held to. Are the clergy's evaluative pieces disciplinary? Is that language used elsewhere in the discipline for clergy evaluation?
Let me have the committee try to respond to that. That was not covered in the maker of the amendments.
Without looking at the discipline, we don't believe so, and I don't believe our committee added this specific language in any of our work this week or last week.
So this would not create a parallel for the clergy?
This would put language in the discipline which, while it may be language used for clergy evaluations, isn't currently in the discipline related to clergy. So it would not be parallel.
But the amendment is asking that we require it to be in there only for the bishops.
This is an amendment to a paragraph in the Book of Discipline, yes.
All right, thank you. All right, now we're speaking to the amendment. Speeches for the amendment. Back here, the orange card, yes. Microphone 7.
Wee Chang from New England Conference. I speak against this amendment. If we amend this, we don't really have to have a committee, this jurisdictional committee on episcopacy, do any evaluation. Just spread the statistic report to the bishops and have them submit it. Friends, church are more than numbers, and evaluation is a process of discerning also. So I urge you to not support this amendment.
Right, that's a speech against the amendment. I see a white card in the back, yes. Microphone 8.
Thank you, Bishop. Stephanie Deckard, Upper New York Annual Conference, laywoman. I was wondering if we could get the amendment printed on the screen. It's quite lengthy, and those of us not in that committee are having trouble following what was said. Thank you.
I'm told we do not currently have the capacity to do that on the screens. We may have it read again. Do you wish it read?
Yes, please.
All right, we'll turn to the maker. Do you have it? We'll turn to the conference secretary.
Amend 524.3a to add, the evaluations of each bishop shall also include a review of an annual self-evaluation, a review of the bishop's written goals for the future, with a report on the status of work on goals presented from the prior year, a review of the bishop's continuing education and spiritual growth program, a review of the metrics of membership, attendance, and apportionments of the present and past annual conferences during the bishop's appointment, and a review of each bishop's role in building vital congregations by a discussion with the bishop of the metrics of key churches in the bishop's episcopal area.
All right, that is the language of the amendment before you. I see the orange card here, microphone 6. I'll come to you after we hear this person speak.
Bill Shillity, New York, clergy. I'm newly elected to the Jurisdictional Episcopacy Committee, but I think our work would be totally defined by this amendment without allowing the Spirit to help us discern how to evaluate our bishops on the jurisdiction. I think this prescribes an evaluation process that is one way to do it, and I do not feel it's appropriate to be in disciplinary language, but to allow each jurisdictional episcopacy committee to find a fair and just and good way to evaluate each bishop.
All right, that would be a speech against the amendment. The white card over here, I said I would recognize you.
Darcy Rubin King, Laity, Iowa Conference. In the Book of Discipline on page 268, it does have a clergy evaluation that states, clergy shall be asked by the district superintendent in the charge conference to report on the programs of continuing education, formation, and spiritual growth for the past year and plans for the year to come. The district superintendent shall also ask the local church to prescribe the provision for time and financial support of the continuing education for ministry, professional development, formation, and spiritual growth for pastors, diaconal ministers, and deacons serving their primary appointment in that local church. So I speak in favor of sorry.
You are not permitted to speak now for the amendment. As I understand it, you've provided information to the body on clergy evaluations that is currently in the Book of Discipline. All right, now we're back to the amendment. We've had 2 speeches against. Does anyone wish to speak for it before we head to the vote? Does anyone wish to speak for it? On the back right.
Agreement over here.
Over here, please. Microphone 9.
Clayton Oliphant, North Texas Conference. I'd like to speak in favor of the amendment. I think that this amendment talks about evaluation, not just in terms of numbers, but on a variety of areas of ministry, numbers being part of that evaluation. And I think that this is a good amendment which brings a needed evaluative tool to our jurisdictional committees.
All right, that would be a speech for. Would anyone else like to speak for, so that the body would have that privilege? Yes, right here, please. Microphone 6.
George Anding, lay delegate, Louisiana Conference. Having been involved with a task force seeking to review and redevelop the evaluative tool in our jurisdictional committee, I can appreciate the thought behind this petition, seeking to provide this amendment, excuse me, seeking to provide additional structure that would make for a uniform evaluative process. Precious little guidance is provided by the discipline, and this amendment would seek to provide some uniformity throughout the jurisdictions, which would be useful.
All right, we've now had 2 speeches for and against. We may hear another word from the committee, and then it will be time to vote, and then we'll be heading toward the recess. Word from the committee?
Indeed, there have been best practices already at work in many jurisdictions and annual conferences with our Episcopal leaders. We hope that we can continue to grow and learn from those best practices instead of mandating and legislating specific practices, and we would again encourage non-concurrence with the amendment.
All right, now you're voting on the amendment only that's been proposed in calendar item 217. That is what's before you. If you support the amendment, you will press 1. If you do not support the amendment, press 2. You may vote now. Five seconds. The ballot is closed. The amendment is not supported. Now we return to the main item. All right, would anyone like to speak to the main motion? All right, I believe you're ready. If you would support the recommendation of the committee, press 1. If you do not, press 2. You may now vote. Five seconds. The ballot is closed. You have supported the recommendation of the committee. All right, thank you very much for this session for Ministry of Higher Ed. We appreciate your work. Friends, we have come to a time of recess. Let me just remind you, when we come back at 3:55, we will turn to our president of the Council of Bishops and have courtesy moments of recognizing the retiring class of bishops and also the new leadership for the Council of Bishops. See you back here at 3:55.